Ladies and gentlemen, again, we want to thank the Honor Guard from the United States Army with the military honors. At this time, Rabbi Lisa Bellows will be officiating. Just as a last and gentle reminder, please be sure your phones have been turned off. One second.
Harold was so proud of his military service. Friends, we're here today together to say goodbye to and to celebrate Harold's life, for his love that united us in life and which death cannot sever, for his companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of his heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give thanks. You have the 23rd Psalm in the inside cover of your leaflet. We read this psalm at times like this because perhaps it could offer us a measure of comfort. The mourners, the family receives your love and comfort through condolences and companionship. But tradition teaches that we read the words of our psalmist, King David, at times like these because in this psalm we're reminded that we are never alone, that God is with us. I'll read some Hebrew of the psalm and please join me in the English. Adonai ro'i lo achzar b'no deshe yerbitzeni amei menachot yenachaleni. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevorach. God has given, blessed be God's name. An ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and with the valley of the shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us, yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave and that there is strength in faith. With Job we say, Adonai natan, God, you have given. You have given us a loved one, Harold, who will never be forgotten. For all that was good and enduring in his life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai lakach, we pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and love. As we now say, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach, blessed be the name of God now and forever. In the book of Ecclesiastes, we read that there's a time to keep silent and there's a time to speak. Harold always wanted a big family, and he got one. And so it's an honor to invite members of his family to share words and memories to talk about his love and his companionship. First, we'll invite to speak Harold's daughters, Sherry, Debbie, and Carol. Then his grandchildren, representing the grandchildren, Aaron, Michael, David, and Brett. Sherry.
Thank you all so much for being here to honor my father, Harold Weinstein. My dad was truly a good guy. He was very proud of his military service, and he was very proud of his family. Whenever anyone said to him, and a lot of people did, Harold, you're such a good guy, or Harold, you're such a great guy, he would say, no, I'm just an ordinary man, and he really felt that way. My dad's mother died on his 10th birthday, and he went every day to the synagogue to say Kaddish for his mother. And Kaddish, for those who aren't familiar, is a prayer for someone who died. And it's an honor to go every day to say it for them. His dad worked as a butcher, and he had very long hours. And he had 3 sisters, and they really adored him. But they were older, so they worked a lot, so they weren't around a lot. So that made my dad become very independent. He learned how to cook. He learned how to do things for himself. But he was very fortunate because there was another boy his age named Morton Jacobs, and they became fast friends, and they did everything together. And after the Army, they stayed fast friends, and up until Mort died a few years back, they just remained good friends all that time. My dad was a hard worker, and he always provided for his family. He started out in a sweatshop to learn the printing trade. And eventually, someone he knew was able to get him a union card, and then he was able to get into a better shop and make a little more money. He was a typesetter, and he took great pride in his work. So at that time, everything was hand set. But as time went on and things became a little more computerized and technology was further along, he took those classes and workshops to keep up. He wanted to learn whatever he could. And he also made other lifelong friends at work. He was a very social guy. My dad and I were both lovers of history. He would often tell me stories when he was in the war, and I was able to use his stories and information when I wrote papers for my history classes. He loved books, and he especially loved the books written by James Michener. So the book he and I talked about most often was called The Source, and that's a book that transports us back thousands of years to the Holy Land. But the thing I loved most and will always remember about my dad was that he was always there for the whole family whenever anyone needed him. My husband Rob traveled. At that time, he traveled a lot. I had the children. I was working full-time. So a lot of times I would need my dad to help me, or one of the kids needed to be picked up from school or something like that. And I could just call him, whether it was work or my house, and he would come over in the evening or in the day, last minute. He loved dancing. He was very good at it. He and my mother had a lot of fun because they took a lot of ballroom dancing lessons. And even when they went to parties, all the ladies wanted to always dance with my dad. And he would always take a turn with everybody, including his daughters. And that was fun. He taught me how to ride a bike. He taught me how to drive a car. And when I hit the garage door right after my parents had just put in a brand new garage, he was actually, I thought, oh my gosh, but he was really very understanding about that. When he put deposits on a wedding for me that I decided I couldn't go through, he said he didn't care about the money. He just wanted me to be happy. My daughter-in-law, Brianna, said to me that my dad was a wonderful soul and a light to this world. And that was so true. He will be missed by all who knew him. I am proud to have called him my dad. He will always be remembered. And I'm just going to read a very short poem that helps me whenever I lose someone I love. It's by David Harkins. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what he would want. Smile, open your eyes, love, and go on.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Debbie, and the third oldest, and I just want to say that my dad was so proud to have served in the military. He loved to tell one story in particular, and we loved to hear it. It was a story about the day he almost died. It was his birthday, and he felt his mother, who had passed away on his 10th birthday, was there with him, keeping him safe. His unit was protecting an airport in Reims, France, when a sergeant lit a cigarette. A German plane spotted them, descended, and he said there were booms and flashes everywhere. He was a gunner, so he started to run for the machine gun, and luckily he didn't make it there because that was the first thing the Germans shot out. They all dove to the ground, and the plane then took off. Being sure it would circle back around, the soldiers dove into their foxholes. But 2 men were in my dad's foxhole, meant for one. He thought if they came back, that would be it. Miraculously, the plane, for whatever reason, never came back, so he went on to lead a full life. I'm so going to miss my dad. When he retired at age 65, he told me that anything from this point on is a bonus. And as it turned out, he had 33 bonus years, almost 34. And they were good years. My mom and dad lived independently, relying on each other with a little help from their children until the pandemic. At that time, my siblings and I decided on grocery shopping for them. They weren't happy with that arrangement, but they reluctantly agreed to it. They would sneak out at times to do their own errands and shopping, and they would laugh when getting caught. They were partners in crime, and they always stuck together. It's hard to talk about my dad without talking about my mom, because they were so in love and so connected. They both loved having a big family, and nothing was more important to them. Through their actions, they showed us the importance of family and how to love. They believed in spending a lot of time with family, but they also spent a lot of time with each other and with their many friends. They knew how to have fun. And as Sherry said, they took years of dance lessons, and they danced together into their 90s. And after my mom passed, literally, my dad continued with the dance in his steps and a beautiful expression on his face as he took his daily walks. This last year was challenging for my dad, as he lost the love of his life, our mom, Harriet, just 1 year ago. When visiting her at the cemetery a month after her death, he bent down towards her grave and told her so lovingly that he would be joining her soon. Now I want to shift my focus to only my dad and my special relationship with him. My dad always made time for me and was always there whenever I needed anything. Once my dad even walked the school picket line with my coworkers and me. Remarkably, my dad had the energy and stamina to keep up with us. And my dad always made me feel good about myself. We would have spiritual talks together through the years on our many walks, even in the last weeks of his life. He loved music, and often during time spent together, he would choose music from a playlist of his favorite artists, and we would listen to music of the old greats and sing together. This past 8 months in memory care, he would often ask me how I knew how to do everything and how lucky he was to have me. He also would say the same to my siblings. I told him I was the lucky one because he taught me how to do so many things and always took care of me, and because of that, I learned how to help him. That made him smile. Growing up, my dad was always patient when helping me with my homework, teaching me how to play tennis, chess, card games, and I could go on and on. A couple of months ago, he and I were playing pool. He could see I didn't know what I was doing, and he started giving me pointers that were most helpful. I said, "Dad, you're 98 years old, and you are teaching me how to play pool." And we both laughed. I taught him as well. One day he asked me to teach him piano. He had already been playing the guitar for years, but now at the age of 93, he was ready for another instrument. We had fun during his weekly lessons, and he learned several songs, and we even played a few duets. Even though my dad was struggling with dementia that worsened after my mom's passing, his personality always remained the same. He was the kindest and most giving father. One of the things that most people noticed about my dad was his smile, and it's one of the things that meant the most to me. He had a smile for everyone, even in the last days of his life when he was in pain. When someone walked past, he had a smile for them too. His smile, like everything else about him, was truly authentic. My dad loved fresh air and the warmth of the sun. He loved to be outdoors playing tennis with his friends, family, and eventually grandchildren well into his 80s. He loved sitting by the pool or relaxing in the backyard. The day before going on hospice in the hospital, he and I sat on a bench soaking up the sunshine. He was quiet that day, but he let me know he was enjoying the moment. That will stay with me always. My most special memory of late, every time I visited, when I was ready to leave, he would take my hand and I would tell him I loved him. And he would look directly into my eyes and expressively say, "And I love you too." And I know without a doubt that he did. I loved my dad, and I will always carry him with me in my heart.
My dad was one of a kind. He was such a fun-loving, affectionate, and colorful person who touched the lives of everyone that he knew. He was there for us no matter what, and I will always be grateful to have had him in my life. I have so many great memories of my dad. I will never forget our endless hours on the tennis court, many bike rides to Botanic Gardens, family trips, and time spent at the pool. He was always so happy just to be around his family. And while I was working part-time, he would join me on weekly errands and Taco Bell lunch dates for extra time together. On that note, we can't forget about how much he loved our family parties. When I was small, my parents enjoyed having the whole family over for dinner every Sunday. My dad would pick up my Grandpa Joe, and I remember riding along with him as he patiently answered all my questions about how the world was created. Our Sunday dinner tradition continued for many, many years to follow. My dad was quite the host and was often the life of the party with his sense of humor and a martini in his hand. And he would always so lovingly share an olive with me. He always said his secret to a long life was to have a nightly martini, but just one. Our parties weren't complete without his great cooking. I'm sure everyone remembers his famous barbecue chicken, one of his many specialties. He always livened up the room with his singing and guitar playing and was also a great dancer. It was always special having a dance or two with him at the many special occasions that we attended together over the years. My dad was very proud of serving his country during World War II. And we never got tired of listening to the many stories he shared about his Army days, like the time he ran into his best friend, Jake, just passing on the road somewhere in Europe. I am going to miss my dad so much. He was such a kind and sweet man. I feel that I'm the luckiest girl in the world to have had him for my father. And to have shared so many wonderful years together, filled with love, laughter, and beautiful memories.
The last time we were in this room, my grandpa was sitting over there in the front row, mourning with us for Grandma. But now he is gone too. And I am struggling to find the right words to express what Grandpa Harold meant to me. I don't know if I can, but I do want to say that I am so grateful that we had this extra time with him. Last year, I didn't get to say goodbye to my grandma when she passed away. But this past week, when I was telling Grandpa Harold goodbye, it felt like I was saying goodbye to both of them. I know that he wouldn't mind sharing that with her, as they always shared everything else. Grandpa was one of the most generous people that I know. And he was always happy. From the earliest days that I can remember, right up until the last time I went to visit him. He would always give me that big smile of his, and I knew that I was welcome and that he wanted me there. I loved talking to him about the past, about when he was younger and all of the things that he did, and I love that we can always joke around and laugh with each other. Grandpa had a great sense of humor, the kind that is funny but never mean. And on top of that, nothing seemed to ever really bother or faze him. Once when I was a kid, he was over at our house, and we were going out somewhere. It might have been to play tennis, I'm not sure. Anyway, I didn't want to put my gym shoes on, because for some reason, I got it into my head that a spider had crawled inside them. Grandpa didn't hesitate. He just stuck his hand in the shoe to show me that there were no spiders in there. No gloves or anything. He just reached right in. It didn't bother him at all. But most importantly, he did it with no mockery. He made me feel like it was perfectly normal for a kid to be worried about spiders in her shoes. It was a small thing, but for me, it was a reminder of how my grandpa would always take care of me and how he would always make everything all right. I just want to share a quote that I had read somewhere. I think it was originally written with the word grandma in it, but it can easily apply to either of them. Just one more thing for the two of them to share. Anyway, here it is. Grandpa, you've loved me since the day I was born, but I've loved you my entire life. And that doesn't change today, Grandpa. Thank you for all your love.
Hello. So, I'm probably not going to focus on individual experience that I have. Obviously, I knew him for 43 years. We had a lot of time to spend together. Probably more in a generalized sense about how I felt and stuff, and kind of his perspective and how it influenced my own. Obviously, I love and miss my grandfather very, very much, and I got to tell you, the military send-off was extremely moving, and it's obviously it should be moving, but he never really talked about it so seriously, and so seeing that really kind of brought a realism to it. But it was always fun, kind of to hear those stories and whatnot, and he put it in an easygoing way that made it palatable, for people and stuff. So, a couple things that I'm going to really miss about him. I really loved talking to him. I have a silly sense of humor and stuff, and like to kind of say what's ever on my mind, and could always talk to him, and he had a great sense of humor as well. I know, as Aaron mentioned and stuff, you could say a number of things to him. He would laugh, totally open about it and whatnot, and real easygoing and stuff. So never judgmental and stuff, on anything. So that was great. And, I think that's how a grandfather, should be. And it's a good example, for me in my own life. Another thing was, I think he was a real role model for my life, As you get older, as you grow up and whatnot, you look for maybe a sense of stability in your parents, and your grandparents. And he was kind of that, rock. That pyramid at the top and stuff with all of his grandchildren and everything like that. And it was quite impressive, getting through that. He didn't have the easiest childhood. Stuff, had a number of kids. Obviously this is my, perspective and experiences. I'm sure he had, his faults and other things, and his children saw him in one way, versus how I saw him. But he really managed to hold us together after all of that. And it obviously wasn't all about work for him. I mean, he wasn't, crazy educated. He was very proud of his grandchildren and stuff, that we were educated and working and everything like that. But for him, it wasn't, all about work, and moving up, and I feel sometimes like I forget about that, but thinking about him, it's grounding to think about, right? He got to 65, he retired, and what I remembered about him is that he kept healthy. And he exercised, and he still enjoyed life. It wasn't like, it didn't seem to me, that he was missing out on something, or glory days of work or, anything else. He just moved on and figured out things to do. he always would tell me about paying down expenses like your house and your car and everything like that before you retire. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. He invested, wanted to make dividends, keep some cash flow going. And he downsized his house, at the, I don't know when it was, retirement or whatnot, but never seemed to bother him or anything, so I can really reflect on that and take a lot of lessons as I get older and stuff, and it's very comforting to me to think about those things, right? That you can enjoy life at any age, stuff. Obviously, he had my grandmother too and stuff, and they had, a great relationship, and I'm glad it lasted as long as it did. So, while I'm very saddened about things, he did leave a lasting impression on my life, which is very touching to me. I think, as well, when I talk about, him being comforting, I think one of the coolest things was that, as I get older, at least, I start to think about, more and more things, right, that I didn't think about when I was a kid, existential things and others, and when I talk to my grandpa about this, what he'd say usually is that, I can't even think about, that stuff or whatever. He's like, it's too much and stuff. So he didn't really seem to kind of linger on a lot of those, issues that might, bother, some of us and whatnot. And so I was like, this is probably the best, perspective to have. And maybe that's why it kept him so, happy and chill and just kind of able to enjoy himself throughout. So, I'm going to miss him a great deal, and thank you, Grandpa, for all the memories. It's probably still a bit surreal to me, but, just, again, some happiness and feelings and stuff because those memories don't go away. So.
Hey everyone, just want to say thank you honestly for everyone coming tonight, just to really show all your love and support for family and all the friends that came. Over the last couple of days we've obviously received many condolences, a lot of notes and sympathies, and we appreciate that more than you can know. And one that really stuck out to us as we were reading some was one that said, "May you find peace in your grandpa's memories." And I don't know why but that phrasing of it just really hit home because, those words really touch our heart as we envision Gramps up there playing a game of cribbage with a dirty martini in one hand, probably getting Grandma an extra sweater because she's chilly wherever she goes. That today we want to share a few memories on behalf of all the grandkids.
To us, Grandpa was an incredible man who was a living embodiment of what family truly means. This was a man who, rain or shine, would be there at every game, recital, play, show, you name it, and for all 9 of us grandkids, he would be there. Let's be honest, most of these events would have been a tough sell for any person, especially with a Dave piano performance. But Gramps was always there, with a heartwarming smile on his face, ready to deliver the proudest hug once it was all done.
And as we all know, or we've heard today, Grandpa was a veteran of World War II, and I just remember as kids, we always wanted to hear these great, stories of kicking the snot out of the Nazis, or blowing up a plane, or parachuting out of, Germany, something crazy. But, as we're here today, one of the stories that stuck out was much less action-packed, but was really meaningful to us, which Grandpa always told us that when he joined the Army, there was a soldier in his unit that would always razz him and bully him and just yell out any anti-Semitic slur that was there at the time. And just after it happened more and more often, Grandpa eventually said enough and challenged that man to a boxing match, which apparently was a thing back then. I don't know. But they exchanged blows. They fought hard. There was no clear winner that day, but the message was clear. And that soldier never messed with him again and left him alone. And that really just speaks to what Grandpa was. He stood up for what he believed in. Stand up for those you love and never back down.
We talked a lot about family today, and the story that I wanted to share from Grandpa is that when he came home from the war, he said that he went home, or I believe it was back to an apartment, but he told me there was nobody waiting for him when he got back. That story's always made me believe that was why he was so big on having a tight-knit family. I remember after one family party, and I can't remember which one it was because we celebrate every single event in this family. We were standing in the hallway at the condo, and the whole family was out there. He was opening the door, and I remember Jody made a comment, something to the effect of, Grandpa, can you believe you guys started all this, or we're all here because of you? And he responded with the classic Grandpa chuckle and the huge smile that we've talked about a lot today. Nothing made him happier than seeing everyone together, and that's something that's always stuck with me.
Yeah, Grandpa, that's perfectly who Grandpa was. He always wanted to be with family, wanted to be together, and he was always there to cheer us up when we were sick, or show us some hidden artistic talent we didn't know he had, or leave us in awe as he did some sort of sorcery level where's the coin trick. It was always behind the ear, but we didn't know. We still had it.
Let's not forget his legendary appearances at the Thanksgiving talent shows, where his annual Woody Guthrie cover of the Crawdad song was a staple. We were kids, we genuinely believed that he had been a passionate ode to his love for fishing, and it wasn't until later that we realized it was a cover.
I don't even know if Grandpa fished, but he loved that song. And while we're here, I think we should address a rumor that's been spreading around the family, that Grandpa handily beat us grandkids at tennis through his 70s. And I'm here to say that's 100% true. Okay, we learned the hard way early on that Gramps may have claimed to be an elderly man that didn't walk so fast, but the moment he walked on that tennis court, we could only watch in awe as he transformed into a lion stalking his prey with graceful precision as he unleashed a tennis roar of dominance upon us naive kids.
Grandpa loved sports. There was something him and I really connected on. He loved telling me the story of attending the first All-Star game at Comiskey Park. He saw Babe Ruth hit a home run, but never got to see him run the bases because everybody had stood up in front of him. He got to see Babe Ruth. So he was the first person to tell me Joe Louis is better than Ali. He had season tickets to the Bears at Wrigley, and always told us how Sid Luckman was still the greatest Bears QB of all time. He saw it all. He saw Ruth, Gehrig, Ali, Lewis, Koufax, the 85 Bears, the 90s Bulls, I guess the 05 Sox, the Hawks run, and of course the 2016 Chicago Cubs. I'll never forget calling him when the Cubs finally did it. In a true Grandpa fashion, he told me how happy he was that I got to see the Cubs win the World Series, not even talking about himself.
Gramps, he just had a knack for teaching us the life's simplest pleasures, from spreading peanut butter on a graham cracker to those small moments dancing with Grandma and just really teaching us to live in that moment. And, he always had a great story, some sort of weird anecdote, One of our favorite that we talked about the other day was when he told me he opened up a gas station when he was younger. And I thought, oh, that's awesome, Grandpa, you must have made a ton of money when you were young. He's like, no, we always closed early so I can go on dates with your grandma. And it closed down shortly thereafter, but while it's probably not the best financial decision, it did lead to a 74-plus marriage, so Grandpa did it right.
So, in true Grandpa fashion, and in honor of his once-a-day martini tradition, we will raise a glass to Grandpa.
Martini.
May your legacy of love, laughter, and lightheartedness forever inspire us. We love you. We miss you. Thank you. And cheers.
Cheers, Grandpa. How did he do it? It's not good.
It's not even an act. It's a moment.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a great legacy. We've heard and we've experienced that Harold loved his family most of all. And he leaves you and us now with this unusual, particular characteristics that all of us should have but don't. When you're honest with each other and the world, when you live an honorable life, when you care, literally care for each other as if it's no big deal because it's not. Each time you make someone feel loved because they're supposed to be, because they're you, they're them. So he lives in the world. So many of us go through these days feeling unloved and unwanted. And he taught you how to love and how to be loved. And that is the best blessing. And so the world remains a better and a brighter place because Harold was in it. He was a loving person with a kind and generous heart. May his name and his memory be for a blessing for us, for Israel, and all the world. And we say together, Amen. This last prayer is just for him. It asks God that he continue to be received with love and tenderness and care. If you're able, please rise. El Malei Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina Im Kadoshim Utorim Kezohar Haraki HaMazirim Et Nishmat Tzvi Hirsch Ben Yosef Eta Shalach le'olamo Baal harachamim Yastirei b'seiter kanafav le'olamim Veitzvur b'itzvur hachayim Et nishmato Adonai unachalato V'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Harold Weinstein, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. We say together, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the services here at the chapel are now concluded. The interment service will continue at Shalom Memorial Park Cemetery, located at 1700 West Rand Road in Arlington Heights. The family will be returning to the Cairo residence at 1129 Brandywine Lane in Buffalo Grove. They'll be together following the interment, and then Wednesday from 6 to 9 p.m. Memorial contributions to the Ark, or the Veterans of Foreign Wars, or the favorite charity would be appreciated. And for those of you who are joining us online, all that information can be found on our website. And for those of you that are here, that information is on the service folder. For those of you who will be driving to the cemetery, the procession will be forming in our parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing many of the cars with a flag that will be affixed to the, flag will be affixed to the top portion of your car. And please use your hazard lights, and please do not speak on your cellular phone or text while driving in the procession. At this time, I'd like to invite all of you, the family members who've been asked to serve as pallbearers, to please come forward as we escort the casket of Harold Weinstein along with his family and Rabbi Bellows from the chapel, and then you may return to your cars. You're just going to follow here, okay, until we get, you're just going to follow Peg.
Right behind, please, not alongside.
And then, once we get outside, he'll go on. Please rise.